Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a meeting of the North Penn School District Board of School Directors, October 12, 1999. Tonight we will have a special action meeting before our regularly scheduled work session. The meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. Right, Mr. Allen?
Yes, ma'am.
To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone and state their name and address. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to no more than 5 minutes. This limit will permit time for all those who wish to speak to the board to do so, and whenever members of the audience exceed this time limit, the board president may ask the individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. And this is in reference to Board Policy 8344.2. Okay. Art Ramsey, would you lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Ramsey? Yes, yeah. Okay, Mr. Ramsey, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me announce for the record, Ms. Derrickson, that we had an executive session this evening for matters of personnel from 6:30 to 7:28. That there was also an executive session of finance for matters of personnel on, for the record.
At 6 on our last finance meeting.
Okay, we need to be a little more specific.
It was Tuesday.
September 28th.
28th of September?
Right,
Time.
6 o'clock.
no, but that was
Oh,
personnel
executive
section started, I think it was like 7:02 to 7:35.
Okay. Also, on October 5th, personnel had an executive session for matters of personnel. On the 5th at 1 o'clock.
1 to 2.
1 to 2. Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the special action agenda this evening would be first before the work session. At this time, there would be an audience of citizens prior to any board vote. Anybody wishes to come before the board to speak to matters listed before you, please feel free to come forward and do so. Anybody? Okay, Superintendent.
Yes, item A, recommend approval of Mary Ann Cleary as Coordinator of Transportation at a salary of $53,550, effective October 25, 1999.
So moved.
Commissioner
Second.
Shapinsky, second by O'Donnell. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Item B, recommend approval of the creation of 2 part-time instructional assistant positions for 5.5 hours per day to be assigned at Gwinnett Square Elementary School for the 99-2000 school year, and to direct the administration to fill these positions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bukowski, second by Shapinsky. Other questions?
Yes, ma'am. These are going to be part-time teachers?
8, instructional assistants, which
Are
also known
aides?
as aides, yes.
8.
Correct.
That's over and above the 7 to...
That's correct.
Mhm.
So it's up to 9 now.
Right, an additional classroom in first grade, 6 more students in that grade level since 10th day.
That's my understanding now.
Therefore, it
Already.
exceeds the guideline that we follow.
It's a 2-to-1 ratio now. 1 aide for every 2 classes, so we have 18 hospitals.
Yes, there it would be. It would be 2 for the 4
1
sections.
aide for each
there.
one.
Right. Yeah. It'd be- No, we're going to have 2 aides, there's 4 sections there.
So what you're
So then
saying
you
is we
divide
originally
it.
were going to put 2 aides at Gwinnett Square, we're now going to have 4.
No, different grade, 6th grade and
This is a
first grade.
different grade. We're looking at the first grade, a first grade class. This is a first grade class, yes. There are 4 sections there. We're recommending the hiring of 2 aides.
Okay, so we're going to have 2 for 6th grade and 2 for first grade.
Correct.
We'll have 4 aides at Gwinnett Square.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Motion to adjourn? All right, we're going to move swiftly to the work session.
Great.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Great.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the board committee meeting, October 12th, 1999. We would start this evening with educational services, but before we do, I would like to bring to the attention of the board that they may have in their packets a copy of a letter from students at Penfield in regards to science classes. They have attached an original petition, which I will give to Dr. Venema, but I believe you all have copies of that, and I'm asking Mr. Sierpinski if he would place the matter of the Penfield grievance of the 9th grade students on your curriculum agenda. Okay? And also for the administration to deal with their issues. Mr. Erickson, will you please add that to the minutes that was given to the superintendent and also assigned to educational services? Okay. Technology purchases.
Okay, number one, Jim Sowers, tell us about the technology purchases that were discussed at Educational Services this past month.
Okay, we're looking for board action on technology purchases as prescribed in Phase 2 of the technology plan. We're continuing with our implementation.
Jim, could you give us a brief outline of how this is going to work?
And what our liability is, if any.
But it's my understanding the configurations before the board this evening would be delivered to various school locations and would be part of the technology plan per se. I don't have
All
a
right, well,
handle on
then,
the
Talking about two different
let
things.
me make sure I get this right.
integration of the curriculum.
We're going to put together a few models. We're going to take these to Hardingsville National Bank. They're going to offer them to our staff.
Talking about
we're-
two different
No.
things.
We're not dealing with the purchase
You're on the wrong
plan.
item. No, this is
Well,
just.
it's the only one I have.
Item one, technical
I
purchase.
agree.
This is the.
Oh, you're talking about the second part?
Type 2 is the employee.
Back to the agenda.
I'm talking about the.
Oh, the desk pro stuff. All right.
Yes.
You're just too fast for us.
Go ahead.
That's what I thought we were in Snowfield.
Okay.
These are all parts of Phase 2.
Right.
It's just that at this point, as has been done in the past, we bring forth the purchases for October. There was a memo that you should have that outlines these two items that are here.
All right,
Our
then.
proposal is to take this forward
Right.
and move on these at the next meeting.
Correct.
Where are the assignments for these 50, or 86 pieces, 87 pieces, 85 pieces?
85.
Right.
That I'd have to consult with Deborah Klein on as far as where they're being deployed.
Can that be added to the staff, for the board packets for next Thursday? So we have that information before Thursday, if this is going to be put on that
I
agenda.
think we should have a green sheet, Madam President,
Right.
explaining this a little more than just listing two items and what the cost and so forth is going to be.
Yeah, where they're going, who's
Yeah,
getting them,
that's
why they're
right.
being used.
Are those items listed in the technology plan, Phase 2?
Well, apparently they are.
No,
It
we
says,
modified that plan. So,
Yes.
it says here, all items listed are part of technology plan Phase 2, so it is
We're
part
under
of
the
the plan.
hardware line item in Phase 2, but
We'll get you more
And does
details and have that
like
prior to the meeting.
The green sheet, please.
Yeah.
Plus, just in light of that entire plan, which the board did support, was an overall disclaimer that as the board approves at any step
Okay.
along the way. So, it
Thank
doesn't
you.
foul the plan, but there may be something that's stopped and more required from it until we're ready to proceed.
Okay.
Jim, as you look at these new purchases coming in, are we being kept up to speed on any past purchases that have turned out to be lemons? Is there bad product in the balance between new product from last year, pending new product now, and is there anything, we keep adding and adding and adding.
Right.
I want to know that everything we have already purchased and already provided to the students is up 100%, and that we're just not filling a bad hole.
I have not heard of any service issues regarding the past practice with the purchasing since last year.
Or bad machines, bad equipment, lemons, anything.
I have not heard any of that. We have, go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
We have made operational changes regarding the leasing component or the financing part of this transaction, and we've had positive discussions with Compact regarding leases 13 and 14, along with the direction from the board previously with the extended warranties and things of that nature. So, yes, sir.
Hey, did we buy any software last year that someone decided we don't need it anymore?
Right.
And we're not paying a vendor?
Not,
I've not heard
I
of
don't-
anything that's not being used, no.
I don't-
That's what you're asking.
yeah, if there's
Madam-
any type of, what I would call transaction flow or meeting of the minds between buyer and seller, I don't think there's anything.
So
that-
we are utilizing all the software that this board has approved?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a loaded question and
But-
maybe unfair to Jim. I understand what you're saying. If you know more than maybe the rest of us, because what you're saying is pretty ominous, and it sounds spooky.
Right.
If there's more, bring it to my attention, and I will make sure it gets to the right party to come up accountable for what you are talking about. Okay? Mr. Shapinsky, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I think it's clearly time for an update on technology. It's district-wide because clearly we have a lot of questions that are not answered again.
Okay.
And it's time to have an update. Have our technology director at the ESC meeting.
On Thursday night?
At our next committee
No,
meeting?
at the next committee meeting at the
Okay.
Educational Services, which is
Okay.
technology is
We'll
under.
do that.
Let's get an update, status on what we've done, what we've been. Also, let's talk about the curriculum part of it
That's
too.
right.
We're
Okay.
still waiting for them to come back with a solid piece on that.
Still haven't had a curriculum in place. Also, something else that I'd like to bring up also, if I may, we're in the second year of this first purchase.
Correct.
My understanding was that we purchased this equipment for 3 years. We have a 3-year lease
Yep.
purchase option, right?
Correct.
On what we purchased last year. I don't think it's too early to start looking about where, I won't be here next year, but I don't think it's too early to start looking as to where the district might start going next year, because 3 years will go by awfully quick, and awfully fast in terms of this lease purchase option. So I think it isn't too early for Debbie to start working on, where we are in terms of what we're going to do next year when that lease purchase contract expires.
Okay, do we have a date on the next technology meeting?
Well, it'll be part of the curriculum meeting, which will
It'll be the Ed
That's
Services
amazing for
meeting,
Dave.
which
Yeah, I can
is
give you a date.
Last Thursday. of the month.
October 28th.
Is it? I can give an exact date.
Let's make sure,
Yeah,
let's get it in the
Thursday.
minutes.
Is it? That's when it is? Yeah.
Yeah. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay. Dr. Venema, please relay to Ms. Klein that she has to be present at that meeting and prepared to answer questions of the board.
Can I add something to that? At Back to School Night at Penfield, several teachers made comments, not directly to me, but just in the course, that it was great we have this new hardware, because the new televisions and all that had arrived, but we don't have the software to go with it. So I have questions about the software
We'll
also.
make sure we cover it under education
Okay.
services.
That'll all be part of the update, the status
Thank you.
of both elementary and secondary aspects of phase 2.
Thank you.
Okay, members of the
Phase
board,
one.
then, in light of that meeting, and that Ms. Klein's going to be there to answer, gather up all your questions from all your different walks in life and the things that you're hearing, whether true or untrue, bring them forward and make it a time of house cleaning.
Can I just say, though, I've had a number of people who have wanted to know what curriculum benefits have come forward
We don't have it.
regarding the technology investment that we've made. And this to me is an issue that there's enough interest in the community that it really would be best in at least a televised meeting, if not our committee of a whole, but certainly there's enough interest out in this community to actually catch up with what we've accomplished so far in the past 2 years. So we ought to consider that. I myself have been wondering, we keep dealing with all these purchases, sheets of equipment.
Right.
But we really need to bring forward the benefits that are being carried forward, particularly in a standardized curriculum. I don't know that what we've added into the 2nd grade or the 3rd grade that has any measurable goals attached to it, that we're expecting all of the teachers within that grade level to utilize this computer equipment to build what skills within our students. And I really think it's about time that we started to bring forward something that
Can
says
I make a
this is what we're
suggestion?
accomplishing.
I think we should have Debbie at the curriculum meeting, or educational services meeting. Let us ask her questions, let us direct her which way we want her to go, and then she can have a presentation for the board and the public that has some preparation, and not just have us sit here, waste all our time asking a lot of questions.
I'll have her
It doesn't matter
prepare.
whether it's done this month or next month. Let's give her a chance to see what we're interested in, and then have her give a public
that would be
presentation.
I'll have her give an update, and then from that, a broader presentation can be planned.
For the next
Following
month's
her.
committee of a whole
Yeah.
agenda, I think
Okay.
that would be
For a
great.
televised meeting.
Yeah,
For-
But the committee meeting goes as
Right.
scheduled.
yeah,
Yeah.
to do the
Uh-huh.
committee meeting and
And then bring it
Okay.
forward.
get her started.
I think, let me just add one insight there. I think you're putting too much of a load on Debbie, because I agree what everything has been said, and I agree that the emphasis, the big thing that got the board to move on technology at all was the fact that there had to be an educational program tied with it, and the technology was going to assist that educational program. That's how this whole thing started. I think you need whoever that person or persons are that are part of the educational part of that technology plan should be at that meeting along with Debbie, knows the hardware
she'll
side.
probably
Sure,
do
that's
that.
part of the presentation. Right.
Well, Bill, Don, if you recall, that's something that I was asking for from day one. We started talking about technology. We have never seen a curriculum plan yet as to what we're going to do with this technology. You know, we saw portable keyboards and we saw, you know, the best of everything, but in terms of how this was going to enhance instruction or just what we're going to do at various grade levels across the district, I don't know about Vince, but I know he's been asking as I have. We've never seen anything like that.
Well, that's right. That's
We're
why
buying all
somebody else
this
should be
equipment, we have all
meeting.
these computers, but what are we doing as a district to make sure everybody's getting full benefit of it?
We'll bring a copy of the
President.
original plan and give you updates.
Madam President, if I may, I was talking to Debbie about some software today, and I asked her the very same question we're asking about an update. And I don't know the right word, but she's been working on something like that already, it's my understanding. So she's very well on the
So
way.
it's timely.
I
All
think
right.
in the plan, it called for regular updates, and
Right.
and this is
I
the
know
time.
she is very close to giving a presentation, because I talked about that.
Very good.
Um,
So be it. Okay, we'll move this on then to the next two meetings. Okay. Employee purchase plan.
Jim, you want to share?
Okay. Additional background with the technology plan, there has been an interest with enabling the school district's personnel to get access to technology products at our pricing or at our vendor relationships, and to try to make that as accessible as possible. Debbie Klein is in the process of getting 3 or 4 sample configurations or bundles through Compact, and having those documents advertised to all interested employees. And as a byproduct of the district changing the banking relationship approximately 12 days ago, Hardeeville National Bank would also entertain the prospect of having a financial part of that transaction on a personal basis, or a transaction with our employees and that financial institution. I think when the Compact account representatives will meet with Debbie, they will have 3 or 4 choices, and I believe in the documentation it has different payment arrangements for the individual's personal check, Visa, MasterCard, Compact, financing / other. And this is just another potential scenario where they may use Hardeeville National Bank as the other, or they can call any financial institution they desire. So that's how this process started, and that's what we have before the board this evening.
Let me ask you a few questions, Jim. In no way whatsoever is the school district bankrolling or being the bank
No.
for any of these transactions.
We're just letting these vendors have access to our employees.
In what way? Mail, by
I would
letter? By what?
I would suggest documentation in individual school locations, or brochures and things of that nature, flyers, those types of promotional materials.
Okay, are we going to be getting a broker's fee? What's in it for us? What is our administrator on our time and on our payroll going to get out of this work?
There isn't any direct tangible benefit, but I would suggest we're going to have the technology utilization increase, and perhaps there's an indirect benefit. It's also important to note that Compact will be doing the work with their own personnel, and Hardeeville National Bank will be doing the work with their own personnel, and any other financial institution. So I don't believe
It's
there's
just a
any direct
question, because I
expense.
see sales here for Compact, I see transactions here for
Absolutely.
Hardeeville National
Absolutely.
Bank, and I see in the middle our tax-supported administrators and side staff finessing these deals.
Absolutely.
The other question, why is this limited to just our employees as opposed to all of our high school students or parents, or why the employees only?
That's a very good question. What I envisioned was our employees and their family members, which if we look in the health insurance plans, we have about 4,000 covered lives with 1,500 employees. So I think with the Compact Educator Buy program, or the way they did the bid list in the Commonwealth, I think our employees can get access to that for every family member. I can't answer our students. I can't answer that question this evening, but I can certainly research that for October 24th.
I know on the surface it looks like do-gooder stuff. It's a nice thing, but if this was for high school students, if this was even for our parents to have in the home to help with kids and homework and blah, 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 I'd feel better about this. This looks like a program to me that the union could pull off themselves without using our administrators, without using our staff. I'm just a little weaky about it. I almost think it's directed at the wrong population. I'd rather see it directed at the kids.
I'd like to
Questions
see
this
us,
way?
I'd like to see us out of it altogether. I have no problem with their piggybacking on our affiliation with Compact and getting a price. But in terms of us doing any kind of administration, I think if these people are going to get a computer or some kind of equipment from Compact and piggyback on our prices or relationship we have with Compact, we should be out of it altogether, because
That's it.
if these things go, people lose them or whatever, I don't want to have us holding any kind of liability.
No, we are completely out of it.
Okay, all right.
Only-
Well, let me ask a question. If we're completely out of it, they're buying at our buying rate, and we buy off the state contract. So who are they gonna be buying from? And who's gonna handle the sales tax collection? And
Right.
the other things that come
It's
from that?
Compact with the individual employee, they are sales tax.
So we don't need the state contract anymore, we can just go to Compact, get that same deal? Originally, it was designed that we buy at a significant, we have buying power.
I think they get access to that price, but they've got the 6% load factor, because they're sales tax liable for the transaction. Now, I don't have my arms around the Compact Educator Buy program in Pennsylvania, but I would suggest that's how it works. It may be similar to what Drexel University did many years ago with the incoming freshman class, and I think they had an Apple computer
Right.
deal.
So all you're asking us to do is what? Allow a vendor to come in here and sell our people stuff at their prices and discounts?
That's what I heard.
Sure, yeah.
Why don't we sell them our mailing list? That's
an
legal and
interesting-
allowed to be
Good
done.
point.
Why don't we
There you
sell,
go.
there's gotta be something in it for us.
That's an interesting
I know this is all
question for
nice
the solicitor.
and
Not a bad idea.
lovey-dovey, but
It's
I
good.
don't wanna work for Compact,
Excellent point.
What's in it for us?
We have a lot of affinity programs in
No,
many,
no, we got
many
it.
businesses, and I guess my difficulty with this is, we're members of the North Penn Chamber of Commerce, they have affinity programs.
Right.
I mean, I understand what they're reaching out for. My question is, why is it in front of us, and why do we have to deal with it? And don't get me wrong, I've
Because they want
heard
the
the
price that
technology
we
people
get.
tell us the
They want the
intangible
price that we
results
get.
of having our employees exposed to the same technology they will use daily. That's a no-brainer, anybody can understand that. But again, why are we dealing with this?
I don't think I mean to speak for Dr. Venema, but it may be because of the solicitation of our employees or advertising within our facilities.
Right.
I don't know a particular board policy on advertising.
No, I don't think this would interfere with that. You're right, Mr. Sherpinsky, that it is related to the intangible benefit that we might gain by having more people have computers and take advantage of that at home. We have no idea what kind of response we're going to get to this. We originally talked about a lease circumstance, and that was rejected, and so this was the alternative that we went with, just to give people an opportunity to buy them. Again, we don't know who will take advantage of it, but I think the bottom line was, don't involve the administration or our existing staff in doing anything other than, in this case, maybe distributing some flyers, and then whatever happens beyond that is between the individual employee and that
Well,
vendor.
that's what we
But Vince makes a
prescribe
good
at
point.
the
We have to be a
educational
member of the
services.
consortium in order to get the good price that we're getting. Now, if this is going to be...
That's not what they're saying anymore.
No, if this is going to be between the individuals and Compact, and they're going to get the price that we're getting,
let's qualify this. It costs nothing
Why
for
did
the
we have to
district
go on
other
the
than the
consortium?
distribution of our flyers, okay, for this program.
Hello.
Debbie Klein's gonna develop 3 or 4 bundled packages, which we already, basically, would probably mirror what we're doing already, right?
Compact will do that per her
Okay.
direction.
Okay, same idea. So there's no cost, either direct or indirect for us, there's no liability for us, either direct or indirectly. We're not gonna deduct this from their payroll, we're not gonna be involved in the collection of their money,
Right.
anything like that.
Correct.
All right, well, what the hell are we talking about then?
Let's move on.
Quite frankly, that's what I was worried
Why
about.
Let's move
Why do
on.
we deal with?
When this originally came
We'll go
forward,
right to
this was
compact.
going to be carried through the district's
Well,
financing
and we
and
shot that
payroll
down completely.
deduction, so.
We had a
Yeah.
solicitor's written opinion
Right.
saying we can't collect
Right.
sales tax for these
Right.
people. We're not responsible for the liability, the
We shut
deduction
that
of the
down a
cost
while
of the
ago.
program.
I would like to see a follow-up on Donna's
Why the
question.
employees first?
Yeah, for
Why
the
don't we do
students.
the kids first?
Yeah.
Well,
And
you
their
don't want
their
that might be another
parents, and then
avenue.
employees. The employees are the most capable of going and buying a computer themselves.
We have a lot of affinity
That's-
programs. This could be one of them
That's
that we
what
can
I'd
offer
like
to
to
the
see the
parents. We see it
follow-up.
all the time with Market Day and every other thing under the sun for home and schools to make money and whatever.
Well,
I just think we're in the-
We're out of the
I
loop
just
there,
think we're in
right?
the wrong order. I know that we have 2,700 kids up at the high school. You got kids going off to college.
Well, maybe you just see their priorities a little different.
Well,
Well, you
the
know-
honesty is, if we're hearing what benefit this is by facilitating our teachers having access to a computer at home, well, certainly that's gotta be applicable to helping with the direct education of our students and making it more affordable for them to have access to a computer at home. So, I don't know what kind of regulations or rules that come in such a discriminatory fashion, but I do think it should be looked into, that if we're able to open this up for them, as long as, again, it's
It's a
between
personal transaction.
the.
Are we gonna
whatever.
allow competition?
Well,
Besides Compact, we're gonna let IBM in here, we're gonna let Dell and Gateway
that's
and
what I'm
everybody.
I
wondering.
asked for that before we went to compact, it never happened.
Right.
Compact was the only choice we ever had.
There are others on the state bid list, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Is this your program, Jim? Who's bringing this forward?
This is from the Ed
Yeah, this
Services.
originated from Ed Services.
Yeah,
It,
we had it on our
uh,
agenda.
It came as a.
Oh, I know that. I'm just wondering who's bringing
Jim
this forward? Who's
investigated.
pushing this? Who's pushing this? Who's here to answer questions besides
Orig-
Jim, who's dancing here for us? Who's stuck answering this question?
Well,
Very smooth.
I'll take it, because originally it was Debbie that raised this as.
Right, and I
a
remember, let me tell
plan.
you something, we talked about this in February and March. The
Yep.
solicitor gave us
Yep.
an opinion of some of the things we
Yep.
couldn't do. Debbie's
Right.
obviously taken it back and dealt with most of these issues.
Mhm.
But now I'm just asking the other questions. What about competition? What about the availability of other programs for other things? I mean, we see it all the time. We're a big district, we're a big market, we offer a lot to everybody. I mean, we all heard about the COLA wars with Pepsi and Coke and all the things they want to do for us. Why don't we have the same thing with computers for our employees and our parents
And
and
the
everybody
bank.
else?
It should be very easy for us to check that out and
Just
And why-
defer it until we have answers to that.
Okay.
Why
We
just
haven't
call it-
explored it up to this point for anyone other than employees.
And
If
Don,
you'd like
it's-
us to go back, and we can certainly
You
do
don't even
that.
know, you don't even know what price they really charge, maybe higher.
I don't
Jim,
know.
is 6% the
I guess they won't be
interest
doing much
rate?
business, huh?
Of tax? Just the sales tax, is Harleysville, is there interest? There's gotta be interest.
Oh, for the loans.
Well, that was a lot,
Move on.
depending on what type of financing they chose.
This will not be on the
Alright.
agenda then until we have our
Why is it
curriculum
not
meeting.
meeting.
But nothing
Did you
discussed.
find out why a
Move on.
particular bank?
Discussion.
Yeah, but you can't.
Okay.
All right,
Are they
wrap
locked
around,
behind
folks. Okay, staffing, secondary ESL instructional assistant, high school graduation project coordinator.
Okay, I'd like to take a few minutes and explain to you what we're coming to you for, and give you some background on it and answer your questions. If you don't mind, I'll go through the green sheet, which is 91, 99, and tell you the rationale behind these two positions. We've had some conversations about ESL, primarily at the elementary school level, but we've also had some issues at the secondary level, and the issue is primarily related to our population growth. It's growing very steadily at the secondary level. I know over the past 2 years, we've got 35 additional students at the high school alone. We also find that we have more students who are strictly non-English speaking, therefore requiring more instructional time in order to eventually immerse them into our program. Our staffing, as I described there in the green sheet, we do have teachers assigned to individual instructional sections, and of course, the true instruction is done by, in the secondary schools, it's primarily a foreign language teacher, but not in every case. It's a certified language instructor, whether it be foreign language or English, teaching that. In addition, we have aides who assist with this process, and when we started this school year, we didn't anticipate, or at least last year as we planned for this, we didn't anticipate the growth by this time of the year. The ESL population typically grows dramatically during the school year as opposed to right at the beginning. So we get more and more students who come into our system. What we found is that we now have more students at the start of this year than we had at the middle of last year, which seems to be one of the peak times. In particular, we have the numbers of students at North Penn High School, and at Pembroke Middle School, we have more non-English speaking students than we've had in the past. The total enrollment hasn't gone up that much, but we have more non-English speakers, therefore a need for more close attention and more time just learning the English language. So because of that, we're requesting that we add one additional full-time ESL aide to be split between North Penn High School and Pembroke. We do need a full-time position here because of the fact that this person would be split from day to day, spending part of the day at the high school and part of the day at Pembroke. The estimated costs that I've listed there reflect the starting salary for ESL instructional assistants, the regular school day plus one more, and the benefits, which total approximately $21,000. So that's the first one. The second one is strictly a need at North Penn High School. Last year, during the fall, Dr. Cotter came to the board at a couple different occasions, I believe, and talked about the graduation project, a requirement of our state Chapter 4 regulations that forces our students, or requires our students, I shouldn't say forces, but some students would probably feel that way. Is that right, back there? In any case, because of this graduation project, there's an awful lot of work to be done, not only by the students, who I know are very excited about this opportunity, right? Not getting much response to it.
No, well, they're here because they're being punished, I guess.
They're only here
Well, they're seniors, they don't care.
Oh,
Doesn't
they're
apply
gonna
to
miss
them.
this.
In any case, what we have is approximately, for this coming year, for the 99-2000 year, we have some 2,000 students who will be immersed to one degree or another in developing a project. This project must be completed satisfactorily by the time that they graduate, and this is a state requirement, so it's completely an additional function at North Penn High School. The following year, all of the students in the school will be involved, so it doesn't affect our seniors, but it does affect our sophomores and juniors. In addition to the 2,000 students who will be in one phase or another of working on these projects, being advised by staff members, we have about 115 teachers who are going to serve as project coordinators, and we anticipate, Dr. Cotter tells me, about 200+ proposals that will come before a review council of staff members. All of this requires some coordination work. All of this requires a lot of paperwork, a lot of meetings and planning and accountability. What we're proposing to deal with that issue is ask one of our existing teachers who teaches 3 English sections to assume the role of graduation project coordinator. In order to do that, we would have to then assign those 3 English sections to a new part-time, long-term substitute English teacher. I estimated that salary and benefits for that half-time position to be that for the year. It would be prorated from the time that we would put this on board. This part-time position would, as I said, a substitute position, would be put in place for the remainder of this year, and since this is a first venture for us, we would monitor the need for the coordinator and make a determination about whether it needs to be expanded, can be reduced for the following year at some future point. But we really feel that this position is necessary for us to pull this off the way it needs to and to be coordinated the way that it's necessary to make it happen. Therefore, two recommendations. Approval of one full-time ESL instructional assistant to be split between Brooke and the high school, and the approval of one part-time substitute English teacher to replace the person that we're recommending assume the role of graduation project coordinator.
Okay, folks, let's do this one at a time. Let's do ESL first, handle all those questions, come to some, consensus, and then we'll go to graduation projects.
Before you do that, did the committee that heard this, is this their recommendation?
We didn't have a committee meeting with this.
No.
We didn't have a quorum,
No.
so we did not have a committee meeting.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, before we go any further, Mr. Shapinsky, that's your committee. Are you comfortable with discussing this now, or should we go back to committee?
Well, since we have the difficulty facing us right now, we have to deal with it now. That, unfortunately, we didn't have an opportunity to talk at length about it at the committee meeting where we can answer a lot of the questions, but
Okay.
I got the time. Let's talk about it now.
Okay. Questions to the right, Mr. Schilling.
Is this in the budget for this particular assistant? Assistant?
No.
No, I don't know the status of the salary budgets, but we did not budget these positions. They are truly new positions based on these needs.
Now, just a second one on anyone, just one, graduate projection coordinator. I just have one question. Since it's basically the project is state mandated, can we get any money for this from the state?
You're in charge of asking.
Where do you
Well, I
live?
understand that, but I had to ask
You
the
live in
question.
this state?
I had to ask the question, all right?
It's your green card.
It's a very good question, for maybe people who hear this will write their state representative and say how there's another 20,000 that's being taken out of our pocket because of the state mandated program. That's my point, Ms. Mangle.
I understand, Mr. Schilling.
Thank you.
Point taken. Again, another unfunded mandate from our legislators in Harrisburg.
And where are we gonna get the money to pay for these two items?
From your taxes.
Out of your salary.
Yeah.
Your
Fund
board
balance.
salary.
Yeah, Compact might fund them, as a broker
Fund
fee.
balance.
Seriously, Mr. Sowers, where would this thing come?
The
Because it wasn't
Funding
anticipated.
would come from the salary appropriation in the general fund.
Okay.
Board friend.
This could have been, this state requirement didn't happen last week. We knew that this was coming around. This could have been in this year's budget to anticipate this coordinator. The ESL is situational, that did come upon us, but this other position did not.
Yeah,
Mrs. Shaw.
I think we ought to keep in mind, too, that 20,000 is probably the tip of the iceberg when you're talking about graduation projects for,
No, it's,
the graduation projects for 2,000 and 3,000 students. The money that we're seeing right now, I think it's.
to replace those
that's-
teaching positions in the English.
This,
Dealing with that graduation project, that's gonna grow. But specific, that's definitely gonna grow.
This is only to set up the actual model to do this.
I think on the ESL issue, which is what we're really gonna deal with first, I just wanna know, we moved what was an aid at $13,000 a year to the pilot program, and going under the MPEA, they moved to a $41,800 job because of the classification. One went from being titled an aide for ESL versus ESL teacher. And that person came from the high school ESL program. Now, have we filled all of the positions that were
are you talking
there?
about the elementary pilot in ESL?
Well, it was an elementary pilot, but we took a high school ESL.
She was in elementary.
Remember, Martha?
She's elementary.
What was classified on my sheet as her being secondary.
No, she wasn't.
ESL assistant.
But she was a head.
Okay, so then that was elementary. Did we move, what I saw on the sheet when we had the employees, she was
Oh, okay.
designated secondary.
Okay.
Do we have the exact same, we didn't lose any of those positions? So this will be over and above
This
all of
truly
them.
is above, and it is strictly the secondary circumstance and unique to Pembroke this year and the high school with its big enrollment.
Go ahead, Doctor.
There is one, is one caveat. We did not, we had, I think it was, what, 15?
15
ESL.
aides.
Yeah, we do not employ 15.
No, I know we
ESL
don't.
assistants now.
We were supposed to move down to 12?
Yeah, we're down, yeah, so, and we budgeted for 15, so I mean, to go
The
look at
money's
it
there.
from that perspective.
The money's there then.
You mean you
could
never,
say,
you didn't
we
move
did
the
not
budget
fill.
down to compensate for the additional dollars that were being put into the teaching positions? I mean, the two
Well,
teaching
what
positions
I'm
are
s-
100,000.
What I'm saying is, I don't know what adjustments were made in the budget, but we did not fill 15 positions. We only filled, I think it's 10 or 12.
Well,
There are 3 positions unfilled. for
And I'm gonna
ESL
accept the
support.
fact that the need exists, but I really do believe that for the educational committee, we should see a full review of what's
was gonna ask.
occurred with this
We get one in
pilot
November.
program.
We already asked for that in November.
And some dollars versus the
That'll
number of
be-
instructional hours those employees are providing and catch up with that.
We met today, and we do plan to have a report for you in November.
November?
Okay, Mr. Allen?
Thank you.
Nothing around?
Yeah.
This way?
Yeah,
Mr. Shapirsky?
Just for clarity's sake, we had 15 aides, we have 12. We did hire a full-time teacher, Ricky's right. Okay, so we did kind of bounce those dollars, all right? I just want to make sure that this is the starting salary for ESL aides.
Yes.
This job is obviously going to be prorated for the remainder of the year, 183 days, so we're estimating 21,000. Now, this is going to be a full-time ESL instructional assistant.
Correct.
Are we going to offer it to anybody who's already an existing ESL aide and then replace her?
I hope so.
Or is this going to be a created position and we're not going to take advantage of anybody else we have with training and familiarity with the district and anything else?
I think
What's your plan?
once the position
Is approved, then
is
you'll decide how you're
approved,
going to best fill it.
then we'll just,
Be
you know,
posted.
obviously,
You
we're
gotta
gonna
post
take the, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It will be posted.
I would like
Make it
to,
available.
take advantage of that. I mean, we have a lot of good people working for us already who could probably fill this job in a,
And we know some of them want a
Heartbeat.
full-time role.
we're just going to talk about the ESL and we're going to go back to the graduation project.
Just
No,
finishing up
talking
around.
Can I,
about
uh,
ESL.
Yes, John, your question is very good, by the way. Where's the money gonna come from? The Finance
Graduation.
Committee has been, at least, I know myself, has been working on budgetary transfers, where because we had incomplete data when we did the budget, we now have actual numbers. I'm personally working on transferring many, many thousands of dollars, I'll bring before the Finance Committee, to transfer the money to the budgetary reserve in anticipation of requests by the administration, so when they need money, we'll then allocate the money specifically to that line item. So next year, we should come in literally to the dollar,
Good.
especially with the new human resources module. When we find more money, that'll go to the budgetary reserve. So again, we should come right in on the dollar. So on that, we won't be over $2 million or whatever.
Thank you.
So that was a good question.
Offered word is specifically. Carrie?
Yeah, I have a question on the way the person utilizes their time. Are they half-day at the school and then half-day at the other school, or 2 days a week, or 2.5 days
It's
and
gonna be
then 2.5?
half and half. They'll travel between the schools each
Do
day.
they have to meet every day?
Well, there is daily instruction, and the students meet every single day. It's not like they're meeting every other day.
Okay.
I think we really need the aides in each school part of each day.
Okay. That's all.
So it'll be salary plus mileage.
It will be-
Yeah, put them on a bus.
Let's not go there. Mr. Mosey?
The only thing I was going to suggest, Vince, you talked about getting a report in November. I'd like to see that report by our next committee meeting. The last time we discussed ESL was back in April or May when we were talking about budget.
The
And
pilot.
they wanted to change the pilot and so forth. I think it's been in place for a few months now. I would like to see where we are in this program.
Can you handle that, Dr.
Well-
Robinson?
It's 2 weeks away.
Who's still
Taking
handling
2
it? I mean,
weeks.
we
I'd like to
originally-
know, like, how many
No, wait a minute.
students we have in the schools,
We
what the
did
increase
originally ask
is.
for a November report. That's what the original pilot program was for us.
Okay.
Can we push that up?
We can try.
We'd like to know if the pilot program that we originally installed is working and is addressing all the issues.
And
Because
I
it
would
was a
al-
question.
And I'd also like to see enrollment figures now. I mean, we're being told here that, the enrollment stuff, I have no numbers.
That's high school.
But I
It's
get
still
that.
no numbers.
That's high school. Which is
Okay,
different
but
from
high
the
school, we
pilot.
have no
It's
number.
different program.
35 students more.
Okay,
Over the
but I
past 2
would
years.
like to see,
At the high.
part of
I'll give you that.
part of that pilot program you gave us, broken down by school,
Mhm.
how many students we had in the various languages and so forth.
You want total
But
demographics
the pilot.
of ESL?
Pilots
The
at
pilot
ESL.
is
Pilot had nothing to do with.
No, that's fine, but
We can give
also,
you updated
but I would
numbers.
like to see where we are
We can do that.
district-wide with our
Okay,
ESL
we can do
program.
that.
Because I just personally feel this is something, if we don't keep a handle on it, it can get out of hand real fast.
So this goes to the agenda for next week, folks?
All right,
Everybody okay?
all right.
All right, before we move on to the graduation project, how many kids in the back are, how many students in the back, I mean, are here on a homework assignment? How many are here because you're being punished?
You already raised your
Isn't this
One honest
unbelievable?
child.
Is this what you want to do when you grow up? Okay, this is what happens to you when you don't pay attention in school, you end up here. Okay?
You have to go through
And you
it again.
torment one another.
This is remediation.
This is
That's right,
remediation.
yeah.
Okay, graduation project coordinator, questions to the left, Mr. Mosey.
No question really, except for the fact that, just so I understand, that this lady, or this gentleman, whoever the individual is, was going to handle the whole project by him or herself?
No,
She's setting up the model, to
Development.
schedule teachers with students and who works with who.
Oh, okay, there will be more than
She's the
just
general
one person
supervisor.
involved.
That's what I said.
Oh, it's a huge project.
This is a
There's a
kickoff.
lot of
Oh.
responsibilities,
So,
the coordination.
So Vicky's
involved.
right, then this 20,000 could just be the
That's
drop
what-
in the
right.
bucket.
Another unfunded
We don't
man.
know
Well,
yet.
this is the initial cost of the program, to design a model,
Don't
Okay,
invite trouble.
to make us compliant.
Don't invite trouble.
okay, that's all I had, Madam President.
Okay, around? Any more questions?
It's a shame that the state isn't paying for it, but I think it's really
Right,
neat
Nancy
that the
letter.
kids have to do it.
Think
I
it's a good
think
idea?
having them do the project is
I think
great. I really like
you
it.
should drive up to Harrisburg.
Yeah, it's a-
You should drive up to Harrisburg.
Till your kids get
Madam President,
Yes.
Yes, I do.
the person who's selected for this program is Karen Holmes. She runs the Career Development Partnership.
Right.
And just to give you an idea, I mean, Dr. Cotter has the full confidence of her that she can handle this project. And if she does this project and she's handled the career development, we are the tops in the eastern part of Pennsylvania with career development. So I'm sure she can handle this the same way. We'll be online real fast. And we have a lot of confidence in her. Vince has a lot of confidence in her. And you're right, this is the initial cost of the model and what the setup is. And we'll
I'm
know
not
the
saying it's
official.
bad, I'm just saying it's not fun. I want to make that perfectly clear. I think it's a great program, I just want more money from the state, that's all.
Why don't you beat us over the head?
Send them a bill.
Well,
That help?
Coordinator, go to state.
It's an election year, John.
The man has a platform.
I'm not running for anything.
No, not you, they are. It's an election year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shapinsky. Phil? Mr. Allen, around this way?
Yeah, I have just a comment about this graduation project. We had heard, as we learned about it, and we were hearing about how it was going to be organized in the high school, that we were told that it would not be a burden, and I always believed that it would be a burden on the personnel. And my concern is that we have teachers that are going to be working with the graduation project and not being available to help students in the curriculum area in which they're really teaching. And I know that there are students that go to see teachers during study halls, lunch study, after school. And if we hear that they're not available because they're doing graduation projects, I don't think we're doing the best for our students. If we don't have those teachers available to help the students in what they're supposed to be teaching. So my point is, I agree with what I'm hearing. I think there's going to be more people involved with this eventually.
Sure.
I think it's evolving, and I don't expect anybody to know, because we didn't know what to expect. But I can see it evolving into a bigger personnel issue, and I just have to keep, I want to emphasize, I think the teachers are there to teach their curriculum first, and if we need somebody else, some other way of getting these projects done, I'd like to see it done with other people other than the teachers,
Oh, probably in a way,
especially if
mom
it
and
takes time
dad.
away from kids.
Maybe the database.
I think we should have our state representatives come in and
There
run
we
it.
go, there we go, we're gonna love you for that, pal.
I gotta tell you, the state officially has made it a part of the curriculum, like it or not. This is a new addition to the curriculum for next year's class. I agree with Bill, though, that we may not have the ability to simply take what free time or prep time that a teacher has and have these responsibilities fulfilled. And I guess what concerns me most about how we deal with this and how much work we put into it isn't from the staff point of view, but from the student's point of view, because this is a new requirement that our students are probably going to work hard to avoid, but they can't graduate without it. And if we don't have enough attention paid to prodding them along, particularly to this new condition, they all know about finals, they've been doing them. We're gonna have kids facing the end of a school year, their senior year, legally unable to graduate. And that's really sad, you know, to find, especially when we're talking possibly big numbers with this new thing coming on board. So I guess we should use this time to organize for it, but it's gonna take a pretty intense effort, I think, inside to get that message home to all the students.
Dr. Cotter.
That they have, this isn't something you can do overnight either. They can't just wake up at a month into the end of the school year and be able to meet the criteria, I don't think, Don.
Dr. Cotter's had a planning committee that has prepared for this in operation at least a year. And they've not only thought of some of the issues that you're raising, I know because I remember discussions about it, but they've also visited other schools who are in an earlier phase of compliance and who already have something in place. And so they've learned a little bit from the errors that have been made in other schools and the models that work best and so forth. So it's been a lot of work just to get to this point. We now find that we must implement it, and in order to do that well, we need this.
I've heard basically that the new state standards are driving a lot of our teachers, a lot of teachers in districts across the state to retire. Have you heard anything similar to that with the new state?
I'm sure it's a mellow bill that you're going
Assessment
to retire,
requirement?
Vicki.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the window. I've
Okay.
basically heard from those up at the state board that there were some that were very uncomfortable with the new adjustments that were being made in the overall chapter changes that were coming forward, of the assessment changes in
here.
particular.
I've not
But
heard
Betty,
it.
you haven't heard it here locally.
I've not heard it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise you. No.
It's a lot of
It-
change.
Well,
It's very
significant
complicated,
changes.
yeah.
Certainly, the largest piece is going to be making sure that the parents realize the requirement. It's one thing to tell the kids, it's
Kids-
another thing to make sure the parents
they
get the
have to
message
realize.
too.
Right.
Because this graduation project could quickly become a parent project.
Most cases.
With many of them, maybe.
Yeah.
Get lost in the bottom of the book.
Not my
Most
share of
cases.
projects. Okay, Mr.
Term
Shelley.
I stated my,
Term.
We don't want to hear it
Just
again.
wanted to give you a second chance. Okay, folks, we move this on to Thursday?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Benjamin?
Thank you.
Keep moving.
We are down to number 4, Crime Counselor Hotline. Mr. Russell.
Yeah, I think we can probably combine 4 and 5, because it's.
Let's do so.
Okay, it's provided by the same organization. And we have listened, and when I say we, Dr. Passler, Dr. Venema, Mr. Shapinsky, and Mr. Mosey, and myself, have listened to a presentation by the Citizens Crime Commission of the Delaware Valley. And they actually provide 2 services. One is that they would provide a tip line with an 800 number that individuals can call if they so desire of any kind of suspected illegal action or possible violent action that may happen at the schools. In addition to that, they also offer a service where they will come in and evaluate the schools for school safety service. And I think that based on those discussions, we wanted to bring this forward and discuss this as a whole.
Okay, very good. First question, if I may. I understand how tip lines work in general. I also know sometimes tip lines are used as a cudgel to beat over the head of somebody who may or may not be innocent. For example, those child abuse hotlines are a nasty little tool for feuding parents of custody issues to call on one another. I'm sure they've done this before. How do they handle students that pick on one another by calling other students in on something that might be a specious claim?
What the presentation was, and that was a question that was asked.
Okay.
Okay? Especially if it's someone continually calling the same issue.
Thank you.
Okay? I think that's what you're
Or
getting
the same
at.
person.
Or the same person,
Yeah.
That there are ways that this is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, primarily by former police officers who have been trained to deal with these types of issues. And their feeling is if they continue, and if their program is that they would then notify the schools and/or the police if it was an illegal action or activity that they were anticipating, and we would be able to investigate that. If it was a continuation, someone was continually making a phone call regarding someone else, or the similar type of thing, they have told us that there are ways that they would be able to find out and locate where that person was coming from. And because the calls are also being made to the police, because you are now harassing somebody,
Right.
that the police would then be involved for that person who's making the call.
Okay.
That-
So this works two ways.
in
It
that
deals with
case-
legitimate complaints, but
Yeah.
somebody who's
Right,
using them
erroneous.
to harass another person,
Right.
they can work against them.
That's correct. That's the way I understand it. That would be
Yeah,
okay.
right. That was a question we brought up because it was a definite concern of Vince and myself and as well as Lou.
Okay.
Because you know, there's people who do things like this.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, questions? I guess we start right again, around. Any questions?
It's
Let
not
me
fun for the
understand, do the students call with confidentiality or with anonymity?
With anonymity. And when you would call, let's say, you're anticipating, somebody anticipates someone doing something
Right.
dangerous. I find out about it. So this is open not only to students, but parents can call, anyone in the community with anybody, any information. They would call the tip line. They're given an ID number only, and if that tip proves to be true and is leading to action in the courts, at that point, they would call, give their number, that would be checked out, and they would be given a reward. So it is only by number, and there's no names provided.
Okay, they get an ID number, and it's up to them if they're gonna volunteer to come forward for the reward or what have you.
That's the way I understand it, yes.
But
So there's no names that.
I mean, yeah, well, with the issue Donna raises, it's one thing for someone to call, they're guaranteed confidentiality, but their name is there on record.
No.
Should there
no
be?
name.
no.
No, I'm saying if it were with confidentiality, their identity would be protected, but with anonymity, they call and and no one knows who they are, so they're free to make more
Harassing.
I understand your question.
harassing
That's the
accusations,
issue that-
false,
Mhm. And that's the issue we continue to
serious
ask them.
charges to where, you can't ever make up for the damage that's done to the person that's falsely accused. And
What we were assured of, and jump in here if I got this wrong, but I guess in today's technology awareness and abilities, that our understanding from them was that if that person continued to make those calls and those threats, or somebody was targeted,
They have a way.
that they would have a way of tracking down who was doing that.
Caller ID.
It's forensic.
No.
There's a forensic ability there.
There is a
with
forensic
their-
ability, absolutely, because that was one of the questions we had, if someone continued to do the same thing. And he also said that if you go with the program, he said, the first month or so, he said, there will be a lot of activity. He said there'll because they have
A lot of
to,
jokes, a lot of
accept every
nuisance
call as
calls.
legitimate call. He says, and then they eventually do, weed it out and get the numbers down, and then it becomes more legitimate. I thought they made an excellent presentation, and I was impressed
maybe
with that.
doing quite a bit of our names on there.
The cost for this program, it says, is $2,500 for the first school and $500 for each of the
Comes to
districts.
$10,000, $500.
Well,
Honey, do all the
First year,
schools?
first year.
I would not,
Second.
and this is a decision that we have to make. I would look at the middle schools and the high school first, the first year to get started, and see what we want to do. There's a concern about elementary schools, and do I want a first grader calling saying that somebody took his pencil or something like that? I mean, I'm trying to kind of put this in some sort of balance. Although, then we have fifth and sixth graders who certainly can do something. So I think we would want to look at secondary schools first.
Well, that would be my suggestion. Now, it says the initial administrative cost is $2,500 plus the $1,500 for the other three
correct.
schools.
So it comes up to
What-
$10,500.
If you do all the
That comes up to
Just the
five.
secondary schools and high school.
$6,000.
Just middle schools and high school. Then what would be the cost in ensuing years if
It would be $500 per school,
$500 per school
Once they
per
set it
year?
up.
per year. per school. So
Okay.
if we did 4
But I agree with the
schools-
concept of doing the middle schools
Yeah,
and
makes
high
sense.
school initially.
And this goes in conjunction with, you know, the committee that Mr. Shapinsky and I sat along. It's being proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly.
You know, we don't, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, look at Columbine and look what's happened at the Jewish Center out there in California, and, you know, what's happening. It's a kind of a situation where it's just, we hope it's another corrective or proactive move.
How come there's no other school systems on here?
Because-
Back page.
Right here.
Yeah.
Flip it over.
Okay.
Alrighty, any other questions,
Yes.
folks?
Yes,
sir.
Madam President,
No,
a
over here.
clarity issue. We'll let Bill go, since he
Yeah,
didn't
Bill.
finish over there.
Oh, I thought, jeez, wasn't I over there?
No,
That's only 2?
you haven't been here yet, have you?
No, yeah.
You visited the right
So it's just
side.
one?
She did go around.
Just the
Yeah,
one?
Bill.
Some of us went out before.
There you go.
My question is, what is different about this program? What does this offer to the students that's different than what they can do now, as far as calling the police, calling our own security, calling an assistant superintendent, or excuse me, assistant principal? What is different about all this? What makes us think that this is going to make the schools safer? What makes us think this won't be a problem? What is the benefit of it over and above what we have?
I think the primary benefit is that there is, you're calling someone who's professional. You're going to have those people get to us and let us know and get the police involved. It does provide a degree of anonymity. If I'm going to call an assistant principal or somebody, I may be reticent to do that, but if I'm calling an 800 number, I may be more likely to do it. As a kid, I would think that if I'm calling within the school, perhaps, or school person, that somehow my name may get out. And I'm trying to think like a 16 or 17-year-old. You know. The other thing is that there is a reward as part of this, that they recommend up to $250 if the tip does pan out, that you pay for a reward. And anytime you provide an individual with a reward, you usually get solid or increased information. So they're the differences I see.
Are we saying that we, at the current time, we really don't have anybody? What I'm concerned about is there's a call made, it's erroneous, it's purposely erroneous. Some kid gets yanked out of class by the police because we were told you had a gun in your pocket.
That's what I was going to ask.
Doesn't have one. It's too late. The kid is now marked.
Oh, it doesn't
And I'm
happen
worried
that way.
about kids
That was my question. What kind of
being
discretion?
that way.
What kind of, that was my question. What kind of
labeled
discretion?
somehow or identified because of an erroneous report, which can even happen now, but
Right.
I don't know that it does happen. But if we're making it easier to call and easier to be anonymous,
Makes
and
it
we
easier to
know that
abuse.
we're going to have calls that are not true,
Right.
we're going to have some child labeled or identified, why'd the police come get you? What's the deal here? Well,
They're not gonna-
I think our first thing we would do, Bill, and I believe the secondary principals, and I discussed this, we had an opportunity to discuss it a little bit, we're not finalized it. But right now, if somebody calls a principal and there's a tip about something, let's use the gun as an example. What I understand what the principals are doing now is in conjunction with our security guards, is they would sit down with that individual and talk with them first and find out what's going on, indeed, do some investigations, perhaps do some search, and make a determination as to whether or not they need to call the police next. Because there's a difference between what our standard is versus what a police standard is in order to investigate. And so that would be, that's what our staff, or our principals are saying to us that they would do, rather, and then contact the parent and then, if necessary, get the police involved. Because certainly we want the parents to know that we've received the tip. And I do think that as we develop these procedures, I think we need to work with, I'm gonna put Frank on the spot, but he needs to be part of reviewing that at least to make sure what we're doing makes sense and is legal.
Well, I was under the understanding that if someone calls this hotline, they call the police.
No.
Not all the
No.
time. It would only be if it's an illegal.
They have a chain they have to call.
Act, and they would call our staff first.
Right.
Okay? But they'd have to make a call. If, for example, the phone call was that there's a bomb planted in the building to go off at such and such a time, you want to make sure that the police are there to do some of that investigation. And we need to work out more of that information at this point.
I guess my concern is worrying about falsely accused students.
No.
That's my concern.
Yeah, and I think it's a good concern, Bill. And that's something that I think the first month or so, we're gonna have to deal with and get squared away.
Okay.
It's a question I think's already, that you're asking questions that we were asking also.
Do
Good
we
questions.
lose control of the situation when somebody calls this hotline number?
No.
Okay.
If someone calls and they say so-and-so has drugs in his locker or in his car, you had said that if it's illegal, they call the police.
No.
Yeah,
First,
if it's an illegal act, the police would be.
So
notified.
there you
call
have the
is the
police
principal.
coming and check to see whether there's a bag of
First
Doritos
call's
or
the
whether
principal.
there's grass in the locker.
Yeah, the first call is they're gonna call
Or
us first.
drugs.
Right, and then we make the determination.
And they're gonna call the school district first.
Right, but what would you do? Say, well, we don't,
Well,
you're gonna let the police check the locker, right?
Now, understand, that Bill's fear is exactly what the tip line's supposed to try to help us with.
Right.
Right now, if you have a student, and if I'm John Q. student and I want to call 911, the police are coming here.
Right.
Okay, that's the way it works. With tip line, first, the description of the incident or the act or whatever's going to come from this, the trained operator, and we talked at length about the training of the operators and how they handle this. If it's an act, say they call up and they say, my friend John is going to commit suicide. Now, are you going to call 911 and notify the police of that? Or is that going to be something we have to deal with at the school level, at the building level? There's other acts, not just serious crimes that we're talking about here. There's other things that will come from this tip line. The only other issue that we came through was, how do you deal with an issue like that? You know, somebody calls and says, I think he has drugs in his locker. You're right, if they dial 911, the police show up, and you're gonna have some serious problems if that kid doesn't have drugs there. He's gonna get humiliated, he's gonna be embarrassed, his parents are gonna be drugged down there, the police are involved, there's gonna be official report whether nothing happened or not.
You won't have that.
In this situation, Vince Cotter or one of his subordinates can deal with it while the police are there and handle it in a little bit more of a confidential issue and still make sure it's done legally.
But 911 is something that a student would take very seriously. They're not very likely to make a prank call because they're immediately identified. You gotta.
So you're saying because we have a tip line, somebody won't call?
No.
I'm not sure, you're making a distinguishing between a
I'm
911 and a
just
tip.
concerned that it is going to lead to more, it's going to encourage more false reports than the more serious nature. I think that, does Montgomery County have a call-in program, a
This is
crime fighting
it,
program?
this is it. This is the program being offered to Montgomery County schools.
But the DA itself, the DA's office
We have
does not.
911 across the county. That's their major line. But the issue
I
with this
thought there
comes
were
from a
all
couple
sorts
other
of
things we have to
help
deal
line.
with. One, how they handle a call, obviously, what the nature of that call is. Lou is working with the secondary principals to discuss the procedures when they get those calls, how they handle it. Tip line will offer us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week line, so that if something comes in 3 o'clock in the morning, we have a way to deal with it. Lou's working on the procedures with the principals on how to deal with that. We're also working on a secondary system so that if the principal gets that call, so will our director of security. So we know that we can deal with whatever that call is. We wanted a fail-safe mechanism installed besides the tip line and the police and our principal. We wanted another person to make sure that it's followed up, whatever it is, okay? We also talked about the reward system. Right now, the Delaware Valley Crime Commission will work with us, with local businesses, to raise the reward money. We'll work with our insurance vendors, whatever we have to do. Initially, we will probably have to talk about ponying up some money, okay, for the reward. And then we will try to get it, we'll try to have it subsidized by local businesses, which they have done with MetLife and other companies. That's a secondary issue with the reward, okay, part of the tip line action. But really what you're dealing with here is, we think this is an effective way to deal with some serious issues, which are also not issues that are directly involved with the police, okay? There are other issues besides criminal activity that we're trying to deal with. And this gives students an opportunity to be anonymous to a degree, okay? And it gives them an avenue to call, and maybe we can deal with it in an appropriate way. We're looking for a safety for that. We're looking for a safety net. Right now, we have nothing. You know, the student can dial 911. He can leave a note under the door of the principal. I mean, you know, we're looking at an easy system that hopefully it'll work right. We've seen examples with the Neshaminy. We have seen examples of what happened to them, and they were able to apprehend the student who made a bomb threat, okay? There are other avenues here that we're dealing with. It's a very sketchy thing, and I understand your concerns. But what you're worried about is students abusing the tip line. They have ways to deal with that, okay? And what they're assuring us is that, if it happens, they're able to deal with it, and they're prepared to deal with it.
And they're very professional. I mean, we ask about, their background and the people that man the phones and so forth. We're dealing with people who have many years of service in the police department, streetwise. The one fellow worked as an undercover policeman. So we're not talking about just putting someone there and paying them $10 an hour to answer the phone and make, just respond. We're talking about people who have experience and they've seen it all. As the one guy said to us, there isn't anything I haven't seen in his 20-some years of being a policeman. But I just think it's a nice, important, proactive situation rather than being reactive. And I think you're right. He did tell us initially that, and we can't deny the fact that the first month or so, they may be inundated, and some of them may be, false alarms. But again, you could have 1 out of 10, which could be a legitimate call.
Understand, we can have false alarms now with a kid
Yeah,
dialing
911, you can have
we
false
have that
alarms.
situation.
I realize that.
This is a way that we
But
can deal
there's
with it a little bit
also-
better administratively, too. I mean, we have an
Tracking
opportunity
that.
here to do a good thing. That's what this is.
Okay,
I
so
think it makes me
folks,
a little more
does this go to the agenda for next week? Do you have to develop a
Lou's working on the procedures with the principals now, and we'll have that finalized before next meeting.
okay.
But it'll be
And we
funded-
also need the cost. We
Yeah,
need
the
the-
funding
The
for
cost right now is $10,500 if we go district-wide, or
We're talking middle and high school.
4,000 if we go to the secondary level only.
Right.
Okay,
Well,
so.
wait a minute, let's deal with that issue, because when we discussed that, I would like to see it district-wide. I don't know if we would get a lot of return for it at the elementary level, but you're talking about less than $1 a year per student in this district. And I think it would be a nice program that we could put it district-wide. Right now, obviously, if we have the number at the secondary level and somebody calls about an elementary situation, we're gonna get it. We're gonna know about it anyway. But, we're gonna do other things at the elementary level because of the security task force, and this is an issue I think we should take district-wide. I think there's some benefits in the long term.
Is the full district your recommendation from the committee, Mr. Shapinsky?
Well, that's what we discussed, and that's what we recommend.
Mr. Mauger, you're with that?
Yes,
Two of you?
yes, absolutely.
Fair green sheets, when you're ready? Okay. All right. Very good. Moving on. Support services, new maintenance, security positions.
Wait a second.
Wait, we
Wait
still
a
have to talk
second.
about the second survey
Yeah.
issue.
Oh, what is? Okay.
There's a second part that they do offer, and that is a school-by-school safety survey. And that is a two-part program. The first part of it is that they send somebody into the schools, they let the principal know that somebody's coming in. He evaluates as to how he was able to get in, what processes we followed to identify a visitor into the school, what kind of signage we have up, how long it took somebody to come up to him and question him as to who he was and get his identity. And then you would check on such things as doors and entrances and safeguards and those types of things. The second individual would then review any kind of policies and procedures that we have in place and would make recommendations. That cost, in order for us to do that, would be $1,000 per site. although, and that was based on the fact that when we spoke with them, we were interested in getting the tip line, even though their typical cost is $1,500 per site.
And our task force recommendation right now is to do the high school first and see what type of report we get from them, see what they tell us. Because we do have our own staff, our in-house security systems are now, our people are now doing this already. We're trying to get ahead of it. We've already dealt with support services with the doors issue and a few other things. We've had an assessment done by a former state policeman who gave us an idea on other things, electronic countermeasures. So we're working on other things too, but we're looking to bring them in and do this assessment at the high school and see what we get from them.
How long does it take?
They told us it would take less than a week.
Yeah, they told us if we decided to do the tip line, it would take about a week for them to get set up. Now, one of the things is we would have to promote that and get those numbers out.
The survey.
The survey.
They told us 7 days.
They would get us, yeah, same thing. So,
And how much for the one site?
$1,000 they told us for the high school.
Even if they only did one?
Well,
I'll have
that
to
was
check
if
my
we go
notes
with
on
the
that.
tip line, they'll charge us $1,000 to do the high school.
That's what I thought they said, yeah.
Because
Another
if they're-
1,000 to do York Avenue?
That's what I was gonna say. If they let you-
Well, hopefully from the report, we'll know what they do and what they look for.
And see if it's
and see if it's of
worthwhile.
value to us.
See if it's
at other
worthwhile
sites.
going to the other school.
But whatever we do in the security task force, one of the things we are looking for with the safe schools analysis is to develop a model at the high school that we can take to other schools.
Right. Since
And that's what we're working on.
That's our biggest school.
But a security assessment is a necessity. Unfortunately, our administration is not trained for that particular facet in life. So obviously, we have to bring in professionals from outside, and that comes with a cost of about $1,000.
You're not trained?
I do many things, but I don't do security.
I mean, it's not a big deal in terms of the fee, and I do support it, but on the flip side here, don't we have enough comps on security that they could have designed this and done it themselves?
We've taken a lot of different steps to take a look at this, and one of the things we've done is we've had our municipal police departments go through and walk through our buildings in their municipalities, so they've become familiar with it and make some recommendations. And I talked to one of the officers, and I said, "What do you think about this whole plan?" And he smiled and said, "You know, Lou, you know a lot about special education and can talk a lot about special education, and Dr. Venema can talk a lot about secondary schools and et cetera, and Deb Klein can talk about technology, and Jim Sowers can put his hands around all kinds of budgets and stuff like that." He said, "It's the same thing with police." He said, "We've got some people who are real good with dealing with juveniles. We have some staff real good with dealing with drugs and narcotics." He said, "Looking at it from a security perspective," he said, "I don't know if we have that expertise to look at it, because you're looking at something differently." And that was his perspective, because that's the question I asked him. When have police walking through, why can't they design it? And that was his analogy.
And also,
made some sense to me.
Don't forget, we also have a cooperative agreement with Talmadge Police Department, who does have a juvenile officer on staff. They are going to come too during this assessment to help us with a night and daytime assessment, and also to put in their concerns with the district, because there's only 3 security resource officers in the county, 1 in Talmadge and 2 in Abington. So, we're fortunate that we have a good resource with the Talmadge Police Department, and they're able to come out and help us. But we still need someone to give us a report, do the surveys, and come back with that.
Put it on the agenda.
All right, moving along. Okay. New maintenance, security positions, support services.
John?
Thanks, Jim.
You'll see green sheet 9299 with a brief explanation of some additional positions that have been recommended for the school district. I'll address security first. The Safe Schools Committee, Vince and Pat, met with the high school administration, high school security, myself and Mr. Cochran, regarding security measures at the high school. Vince alluded just briefly earlier about some measures that they would like to take at the high school, and it was determined that we probably need to increase staff, and the committee felt by 3 immediately. So that recommendation was brought to Support Services. Support Services is forwarding it to the board for approval. Should you approve that recommendation for 3 additional security guards at the high school, we would be prepared to make some recommendations at your action meeting this month. The student to security staff ratio right now, the student ratio is very high, and we aim to reduce that. We could almost cut it in half, adding these 3 positions.
John, I know that over time, we have evolved in the composition of a security person in North Penn. We went from, years ago when we were in high school to just good people doing a job, checking doors, helping out, making sure no one's smoking in the bathrooms, to folks that come equipped with an education or background in police work, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Beck has a background in working with JDs. So we have made some changes already. Are we going to continue to only hire ex-cops or people with law enforcement backgrounds, or
I think right now...
we have a job description for this person.
Right now...
And what exactly we're looking for.
We have a job description. We can distribute that to you if you'd like that.
Sure.
Would you?
I don't have it with me tonight,
No,
but I'll
it's
have
fine.
it before the board meeting.
Great.
I think right now we are looking for an emphasis in law enforcement because they come to us trained and ready to go. They know how to deal with the public, not necessarily juveniles, but that's the emphasis we're looking for as we interview. We have a file full of applications. There are a lot of people that would like to join us. And Mr. Cochran's already begun interviews with the anticipation that you may approve these positions.
Well, I just would like to remind everybody that, it's not an all-male or all-female high school up there. It's co-ed, and I think there needs to be a female officer included in the mix.
We've had
in the
that.
event
We
that there
have
has to be
that.
hands-on work.
We have that on staff now at a couple of our schools already, and we're well aware of those concerns, and that was one of the things that we talked
asked
about
that.
when we talked about this.
Yeah, our district security complement right now is 9. 2 of them are women.
Okay, but do they have that same level of expertise that I know that some of the men do? I know there are women that can do the work, but I'm talking specifically law enforcement women.
One is a former police officer.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay.
John, are we eventually going to address the I guess the security issue that the janitors do now? They check, every school's checked twice a day on the weekends.
Lockups and whatnot. I
Well,
think
these-
that can be part of the plan, and it was discussed, but I know that Vince and Pat have a lot more work to do on the committee.
I know,
as far as where we're headed with that.
And I know we talked about it, but I think it should be brought out that, we're asking custodians to be security people on the weekends. And I would just hate for that to hurt us somehow down the road. So hopefully that these new people could somehow start picking up some of that.
Fit into that role, yeah.
Well, don't forget, there's another portion to this with the Safe Schools Task Force. We're bringing on these people to handle immediate concerns. We're also bringing on these people to handle some future concerns. We want to have the flexibility to be able to dispatch security to a particular school should there be a special event, whether it's a special meeting or something going on. We need that flexibility. As it stands now, we have a staff that is completely assigned and tied up during the day. We also have another issue which we're dealing with is, obviously, we have probably one of the most renowned adult education programs in our schools, and that keeps some of our schools open till 11 o'clock at night. So we have a second shift issue that we're dealing with also. So all these things are going to be dealt with this immediate hiring. This will not preclude us bringing in other people, because I'm telling you now, the way it looks now, we are obviously moving to bring in some more in the future. But right now, this will deal with the immediate issues that we have on the table, and we think it's the right way to go. And John has taken the time to make sure that we address the gender issue. John is also examining some of the other issues with that. Our concerns with the lockdowns and other things and vandalism, we're hoping that this will start to address those issues. It's a big problem. We've got a big district. So, it's not overwhelming. It's just something we're trying to deal with in a responsible way and still make sure that we address the future.
Sounds like
when we
got a
met,
pretty big plan.
When we met with the people at the high school 2 weeks ago, Vince, I guess now, and I'll tell you, the security people do a great job. Jack McCauley and his people do a fantastic job. And my first question was, how many do we have here? And if we gave you additional personnel, what would your immediate need be to give us the flexibility that he needs and the flexibility that we're looking for? And he was very honest. He said, if he could have 3 people, and I'll tell you right now, the ratio right now is about 600 to 1. But they do a good job because of the procedures that they have, and they have walkie-talkies and dispatch, and they work. They what's the word? Cohesively, they work very well together. And we're just looking at there's more they could do, and they don't complain. They don't complain. And I personally think that the people we have over there are a little bit overworked, and we do need some relief over there.
You talked about support, you're talking about situations where if there was a problem in Penndale, we could dispatch people from North Penn to handle the emergency backup plan.
I think one of the things this proposal does is give you that flexibility, whereas now you really need the number that we have at the high school.
So if something happens somewhere, everybody has to stay put at this point under these numbers.
Everybody has assignments. We don't have any flexibility.
Well, that was the first thing we asked them, what their assignments were, and during the course of the day, even Jack, who's head of security over there, they all have specific assignments.
We have problems with tech school buses that run in the 9th grade from the 3 middle schools to the tech school and back. And we could use the additional security to ride those buses at lunchtime.
Is there also kind of like a pecking order among the staff that you already have for issues that are heavyweight as opposed to lightweight issues? For example, if there's a situation with a gun, we're not sending this employee, that's not what they do. These 3 handle that.
I think
Heavyweight and lightweight issues.
They all have their specialties, and they all
Understand, we're in the
kind of fit into
development of a
their-
lot of different policies, which we're addressing a lot of these issues. Our last meeting, we discussed review of all the board policies, administration regulations, dealing with a lot of different issues. We also, from Vince Cotter, he was able to give us a list of what instances were in that school in the last year and a half. And I will tell you right now, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, 50% of the problems he has at the high school are class cutting, truancy, parking violations, okay? I mean, when you're dealing with something more serious as a weapon violation, you're talking about the lowest probability. But we want the capability to deal with everything. Right.
And
Okay?
that's a special security member, not just any security
No.
member.
And that's
That
again
should be
why
a
we're looking
special.
at models to deal with security resource officers from the township and also an in-house security department.
We're also looking at additional training
Right.
for those issues, for all the security people.
And I will tell you, these 3 people, so far what Vince and I have been able to do with our committee, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we have been exploring an awful lot of things, an awful lot of areas. The tip line, the Citizens Crime Commission, additional security personnel. There's a lot of things that we've been doing in the last couple of weeks that we're really going to have to eventually bring before the board. And we also told the staff that this committee probably only has until November. So whatever direction Vince and I have given them, they have to move post haste to get the information back so we can make a decision and bring the information forward to the board.
And it's easy to do.
But all this
We have
is
a lot of
tied
good
in.
staff with
But all
John
this
and
is tied
John Cochran and Lou has really
Right.
focused on this. Lou is not new to this business.
Right.
Even though it's not his specialty, he's been on top of this for about a year. So a lot of this stuff is the culmination of a lot of work and a lot of effort, a lot of coordination too with the local authorities.
Right.
And it all, again, is focused on support of what our district's mission is and our vision statement.
Right.
And that's one thing with that Pat and I were very clear with Lou and John, that anything we do must support our mission. That's what it's all about for us in security. So
All right.
just so you understand that.
Any other questions of the board, so we can move this to next week? All right, move it. Number 2, John, keep going on that
Yeah,
recommendation sheet.
on the electrical position,
Yeah.
let me find my space here. The finance met with me, Bruce and Frank, about the amount of overtime that the facilities department spends. It was duly noted that our electricians, we have 4 of them, were the highest overtime getters in the district. And most of that is because they're backlogged, number one. They're backlogged about 15 to 30 days on routine work. But also, some things just can't be done during the day. Some things are emergencies, and they're called on to take care of those emergencies. I think it was Vince that said to me, "Would an additional electrician help?" And I said, "Yeah." We have about 1,600 plus hours in overtime, not quite 1,700 hours in overtime. Our normal
A year?
a year,
Okay.
last year, on
Okay.
routine kind of stuff. Our normal electrician works 2,088 hours in a year, so that's almost a full-time person. I'm not saying we could eliminate all that, but we could certainly eliminate the backlog of work orders, and we could certainly reduce some of the overtime involved by having an additional electrician. So that's why we brought that one
Is
forward.
some of this out of whack because of NAP and the addition?
That's what I was thinking, that like technology also.
To be honest with you, we haven't increased our district maintenance staff by one person since the late 80s. And we built one at Square, we put an addition on Montgomery.
Walton
We
Farm,
built
Bridle
Walton
Path.
Farm, Bridle Path, Knapp's addition, the high school addition, and we've added technology, which is, the wiring component of technology is unbelievable.
But that-
So all these things
And upgraded
combined.
bus garage
Yeah.
since
That'll be
then.
forever.
Wait, let's get some clarity too. Frank brought this forward from finance because it was an issue of overtime. He passed it to personnel, and Donna assigned it to me. I'll say stuck, that's not the same thing. We reviewed that. Frank and I met with John to discuss the issue of overtime in a couple of positions because we felt that the overtime, you could almost fund additional people.
Right,
And then
John-
John told us what those problems were with assignments of people calling out sick. He needs custodians. They have to know the school. You know, if we have 3 custodians in a school and one's out, we cover. If they have 2 out, we're in trouble. Now we need somebody else. Also, what we found is, John needs to be able to assign these people. So we're looking at the backlog on electrician problems, which John says is bad enough now where, you know, if you break a light in the building, you gotta wait 2 weeks to get it fixed, which is, ridiculous.
Not quite that bad for a broken one, but.
But the other issue came forward with custodians where we had an excessive amount of overtime. Now, we're not saying we can eliminate that completely, but Frank did the analysis for finances, and it clearly shows that we can eat up a huge portion of the cost of bringing these people in by the amount of overtime.
Significant amount.
And I
So it's a
think-
combination
I
issue.
think we ought to see exactly where the savings is going to be as opposed to, the only thing John mentioned the point with the additional strain of technology, or with the addition of technology, the wiring, that's put an additional burden on our electricians, but that's not going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, eventually we will have our schools wired.
Well, no, we're dealing with just regular maintenance issues.
Just maintenance.
We're not talking about
But he
that
mentioned
as
it
part
with the
of-
addition
There was-
of
But
wiring.
it's just
technology-
part
That's
of it.
added, that's
Wait, wait, wait.
added
It's an
to it.
added feature.
John completely analyzed all the overtime. Because I
Right.
faxed him a copy of the report and was like, whoa. And John did an excellent job of breaking out all the overtime for every person.
The reason
And
behind it,
in
everything.
one particular week, one guy worked 60 hours overtime. That's when I, got my eyes and whatnot. So that was during, I understand, just the electrical wiring for one area, one school, or something like that. Now, so that one particular week should go away. But there is a significant amount of overtime. I think it's like 45%, 48% of overtime.
$190-some thousand.
Yeah, we just think, and my point of view from the personnel side of it is, this is a more efficient way to deal with what we have to get done. And in the long run, it'll save taxpayer dollars,
Well,
not cost us. And that's the issue that we had to deal with. And really, honestly, that's just a simple calculation of what we spend, what it costs, and what we get done. And
We
that's
will cut
it.
down on the overtime.
Probably next year, we will evaluate to see.
We're gonna do it.
That's
now.
not-
Well, I
yeah.
think we should see,
Absolutely.
I think we should see some kind of an analysis, John, if we hire someone where the savings can come from, what you anticipate the savings to be. So we have a little better feel for
Oh,
it.
yeah, that's already done.
Yeah,
I don't have that.
Can I ask a question?
How much money?
John,
You guys can keep self
I
to
think-
yourself.
could you do me a favor? Could you Xerox what you showed me, remember all that overtime?
Will do.
And could you put that in Friday's packet, please?
Can I ask a question? On that 60 hours of overtime, are you taking hours, say someone works triple time on a Saturday for 6 hours, therefore you're clocking it at 18?
Vicki, I don't have a photographic memory, and I really don't want to discuss it.
Well, John might know.
Well,
John,
I'm sorry,
John,
you
if he
were-
doesn't give
John-
you an answer, ask John.
John,
John,
put it in your packet.
I mean, excuse me.
Every time she asks a
All
question.
right, go ahead, John, would you respond?
Frank, you introduced it as an example of how bad the situation is, so I just thought you'd understand what the basic meaning of those numbers were. Not a photographic memory, but was it 60 hours of overtime, or is it credited with 60 hours of pay, which would be a triple
The
time?
man was paid 60 hours overtime in one particular week.
That was one pay period, I believe, Frank. But I-
That's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
That's 2 weeks.
2-week period,
Was that person an electrician?
yes.
You know, I don't want to sound like a wimp, but I don't know if I would want somebody in the district who's an electrician handling electricity when in 2 weeks he had 30 hours and 30 hours on top of his
Yeah.
40 working week.
Well, that's what we talked about too. We were concerned
Yeah.
about that.
That's what we were
also.
I mean, that's
concerned
not
about.
even, that's
another issue.
a
That's
safety issue in and of
another
itself.
issue.
You need to look at the type of overtime. It may have been simple wiring, just pulling wire through a trough.
Okay.
Because that's some of the work that they do.
But it's a cost versus value issue for us. I mean,
Right.
we're spending a lot of money where we can get it done cheaper. And this is the way to do it, bring in these people.
But Vicky
And we
asked-
might even be able to
but
do
Vicky
more, which is a
asked-
productivity issue.
But Vicky asked a valid question, because if somebody works
Oh,
on
yeah.
Sunday, that's double time.
It doesn't make a
And that-
difference whether it
Well, it
costs
does
triple
make a
time or
difference.
double
It does in
time. You're
hours.
still
Make a
dealing with
difference.
$100,000, and I'm talking about $41,000. We're
But
talking
Vince,
about a
it-
significant
but Vince, it
savings,
does-
whether they get
I'm
paid
not-
$10 or $20.
I'm not against hiring a
It's
guy.
still
What I'm
cost.
saying is,
Taxpayers supposed to pay that
it
money.
does make a difference, because it isn't 60 actual hours. 18 of that hours could have been for 3 hours work.
Matt, we're talking about total cost.
But Vince,
We're
even if
talking
you
about,
hire.
you're talking about charging
Wait, wait.
taxpayers 3 times what they should be paying for a service where we can do it cheaper. That's
Well,
ridiculous to
well,
argue
wait,
about.
no, the one other part of
And
that.
you're worried about how much somebody makes?
Vince, let me finish. Also, the aspect of it would be that if, even if you hire another person, isn't the rule basically weekends, Saturdays and Sundays are gonna be triple time or double time, or are you going to
It's not a
work
union
out
shop.
of?
He can
And
stagger this
normally-
man's shift.
It's not a union
Normally
shop.
we do, don't we, John?
By state law, anything over 40 hours a week is
Is
time and a
overtime.
half.
Time and a half.
And that's our only.
State
policy.
mandated.
That would be there, so you
Yeah.
do bring people in on weekends,
If we have to.
Double time.
and they aren't
40 is time and a
necessarily
half.
Well, we're
going to
dealing
have
with
an
this,
overtime
a
or
total cost issue.
time and a half on that?
They would be paid
They
time
would
and a
be
half.
time.
See, they would be time and a half.
And that's a
but-
total
Right, not
cost
even-
issue. That's
not
what I'm trying to
even,
tell you, Vicki. We
justifies it
spend
even
X amount of
more.
dollars and we could do it cheaper.
No, what I'm saying is if it's gonna be time and a half either way,
Right.
you're going to still have some of that overtime because it happens on
We're
weekends.
not trying to eliminate overtime. I mean, the idea is to cut back significantly and figure out a better way to be
Right.
more product, or bring in more productivity
think
and
it's
lesser
definitely
cost.
needed. I
That's what
mean,
this issue's about. It's
We're
not
gonna-
about how much
We're
somebody
gonna do
makes
less
now.
routine electrical work on the weekends because we're not going to have to do it.
Or you're doing it to
We're
fill.
gonna have an additional person that can do it during
Catch
normal
up.
hours,
Right.
so we're not gonna have to have the overtime. The only time we're gonna be doing that is on an emergency basis.
I don't think anyone's
Folks, do we
arguing
want it on
that
the
it isn't
agenda?
cost effective.
Yes.
On the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. John, last one.
We only did that.
That was-
Cost
What, the
effective.
custodian and the cleaner?
Vince kind of addressed the custodial issue. We have people that are out on a regular basis. We fill in where we need to. We don't always fill in, depending on the situation, but we fill in where we need to with regular staff on overtime. And
Okay.
again, the hours were significant. It looks as if
Another
2
overtime.
permanent substitutes that would fill in wherever needed in the district would fit the bill and decrease the amount of overtime.
These are gonna be substitutes?
The employees that we would employ would be entry-level custodians and
They'd be
more
full-time
experienced,
employees.
people,
Right.
and full-time employees.
Okay.
The more experienced people that we have on staff would take the position of filling in other buildings because they know, they don't have to be trained, first of all, and they know the other buildings as well as the one.
Now,
that they
you
normally
said
work.
substitutes, that's why I questioned.
Permanent substitute.
Okay.
Okay, folks, we move this on?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Last, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks, John.
Okay, paid leave task force report.
Well, okay, our committee did meet and we did receive information regarding the various packages, brochures, regulations, policies that are in place inside the school district, whether it's through a regulation or policy or whether it's a matter of an employee brochure. We're working to move forward to more clearly define what practices are taking place down to the individual employee group levels. That will be the biggest task. I think just for everyone to appreciate the scope of just one aspect of our employee benefit package, out of our paid and unpaid leave of absences, Mr. Sweet was able to sit down and what he was able to develop was a list of 31 categories for paid and unpaid leave within our various category groups alone. Now, whether more will be discovered as we go down into a more detailed look at all of them, we have yet to know how much that list might grow. Out of those, approximately 8 of them were identified by state regs or federal regulations. The others have just are different categories for paid leave, whether it's jury duty or whether it's military, whether it's compensation time or driven through a contract. things that have been developed over the years. We're trying to work to put a matrix together that puts all of this into an organized fashion so that we can look at a support staff position, be it a classroom aide or a library aide or whatever, and know what are the actual benefits that are designated to that particular employee group. Unfortunately, it is not something that exists today, but it's something that we've needed from, I guess, beyond a decade, as soon as this district grew into a large organization and expanded in the scope of different job descriptions. It was something that needed to be brought online, and certainly something that we expected would have been brought online when we converted to the Penimation program. As it stands now, we have a recommendation that came from Dr. Hassler. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight. Jim may be able to help us with this because Mr. Sowers was very much a part of discussing how we can address bringing up our human resources and financial databases to the level that's needed to just really pull basic data as needed for not just this task force. Believe me, this is not strictly related to our charge, but really in order to get down to being able to operate effectively and be able to have a clear handle on not only this, but all of the various issues that come up with having to check employee records on a day-to-day basis, we need to improve our data entry systems. And the recommendation we have right now is a recommendation for us to provide some outside support in the form of clerks. Those clerks are estimated to cost $9 per hour, and they are anticipating a maximum man-hour need of 1,200 hours. Now that is, from my understanding, the absolute most that we would expect, and it could very well come to be 500, 600, 700 total man-hours.
Right.
But in order to expedite this job that many of us have attempted to have accomplished starting 5 years ago, we don't want to have us with a two-week lag time because we have to come back for another board action meeting.
Then Vicki, your committee's going to recommend that this be reduced to a green sheet for action for next Thursday.
Yes, it will need to come to you. It just reached Vince and myself on Friday night, and we were hoping to see Bob this afternoon, but he went home ill, so.
Well, a green
we are
sheet-
going, as long as there's a consensus here to move this forward, there's some support for hiring this additional help in order to get this major task
Is that your
accomplished.
recommendation?
That is a recommendation.
Yeah,
It would be
The green
1,200
sheet will speak for itself
Yeah.
with or without
Yeah.
Bob.
Let's
We
do
all
it.
know the need.
Right.
Jim, you should draft that green sheet and let Mrs. Scher see it before, get it out to all the board members, and we'll be ready for that next,
Jim, do you want to give a brief
next Wednesday.
articulation of what will be accomplished? Will there be benefits in this position? That's one that Jim.
No, these are strictly
So
hourly rates.
I wanted to confirm
Hourly
there
workers.
these
Substitute.
are strictly hourly employees and take that issue off
Okay.
the table.
Alrighty, Mrs. Scher, thank you for all the time you've been spending on this, and I appreciate the updates you've been faxing to my office very much.
You're welcome. I just have a feeling this is one of those things that just is going to keep growing and growing and growing.
Well, it looks like you have a
Till
good
we're
grip
able to
on it,
put
and
all
I
the
appreciate it
pieces
very
together.
much. Okay, one last thing, piece of housekeeping. There's a desire on the part of many board members to move next week's Thursday board meeting, October 21st, 99, up a day to October 20th, 99, same time. So not only do we want to announce it here, but Ms. Derrickson, we're going to need a legal advertisement.
Also, there'll be a policy meeting. We didn't have a policy meeting tonight. We will have one on Wednesday, October 27th at 6 p.m. So you have to make a notice on that one, too.
Yes,
And we're moving the meeting to the 20th.
20th, moving it up a day. Same time, same place, one day forward.
Madam President, I'd
Yes,
just
sir.
like to say that I cannot attend that rescheduled meeting because I have to work Wednesday night, so.
Overtime, triple time, what are you
No.
getting?
It's a contract I scheduled and I
Go for
can't
it.
change it.
Go for it. Motion to adjourn?